Hey, what's going on? Hey, let's get fired up. Let's dig back into some Reddit OCPoetry content. I know that the poems have been stacking up, and we have a really, really interesting set of poems to go get into today. So you definitely want to stick this one out and see what we're going to be talking about. I guarantee we're going to have fun and hopefully learn a couple things together too. Let's start with Footpad's Poet. DM'd me and said he wanted me to have a look at his poem. I took a quick look and said, you sure you want me to hit this up on the channel? Sometimes people who haven't been tuning into the channel send me stuff cold, and that doesn't always work out super well. Footpad Poet felt he understood what I was talking about, felt he wanted the take anyway. Now you'll see something which jumps out to me right away, which is we got the SoundCloud link. And I'm not saying that every single poet who's chucking stuff up on SoundCloud sucks. Obviously, that's not true. But I think the best way to get the most out of your Reddit experience on OCPoetry is you put your stuff up there, you flag it with the workshop, and you engage seriously in trying to improve your craft. So if you're trying to look at Reddit as a way to kind of get the word out there about your stuff, I feel like you're coming at it from the wrong angle from the get-go. Instead of getting the word out and trying to improve your kind of reputation or like how many people have heard of you, you should come to OCPoetry as a source for meeting fellow poets and building community. Which is to say, quite frankly, no one gives a shit about your SoundCloud or your Instagram. Let's look at why that is. These glasses are all smudged up. Well, happens every episode, guys. I go to put on the glasses and, it's even worse. All right. Gazing at the moon with you. Why is this you capitalized? Okay, whatever. There are a few things I'd rather do. Scenes of us drawn onto the lunar canvas from recesses in my mind. Both light and dark, ideally not extremely unkind. Okay, so this second line of this opening tercet here, scenes of us drawn onto the lunar canvas from recesses of my mind. Those recesses is a little excessive, but it's not that bad because the lunar, the moon itself has all these crevices and recesses and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of echoing there of the moon as a symbol of unconsciousness or fantasy, and then there's this parallel between the poet's creativity and the moon, which is ultimately the moon is just a big piece of space dust. But here's where where this poet's really not paying much attention. Gazing at the moon with you, few things I'd rather do. So ending with this rather do just to get the rhyme with you is really, 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 it's really weak. Both light and dark. I don't know. Both light and dark. This is saying a lot, or using a lot of words to repeat what we're already kind of already got the idea of in the line too. Ideally, not extremely unkind. This is completely and totally forced. The only reason this phrase is here is to rhyme with mind. So never, ever do that. I mean, if this is the thing that rhyme is forcing you to do, you must not rhyme in your poetry. You must avail yourself of free verse, because rhyme is not going to help you develop as a poet. Rhyme is going to hold you back. Look at this lunar canvas from the recesses of in my mind, whatever. I think this is promising. And especially if this could be shortened to something that wasn't so many syllables here. Scenes of us, I don't know. I mean, open with this line. Gazing at the moon with you. We don't need this. I don't know. I see scenes of us in the lunar canvas. Or from recesses of my mind, I draw scenes on the lunar canvas. Thinking of you. I don't know. I think the topic still, the premise here of this, of two lovers gazing at the moon is so cliched. It might be almost impossible to attack this premise successfully, even as a total expert. Even someone at the very top of their game, I'm not sure whether they would be able to do this, or whether they would. They would have the wisdom, I think, not to approach it this way. This premise is just going to be too difficult. When we have two people looking the same way in a poem, they're both looking out in the same way, the you then becomes very passive. There's no tension between the I and the you. And generally speaking, we want to immediately set up a little bit of space between them, a little bit of potential for misunderstanding. I think that's going to work a lot better. All right, let's go on. Considering the Bogman, Humanazan Manu, ping me back and forth. I feel like Hamanamanazu feels like he's kind of coming out a little bit of his shell, kind of developing or emerging as a poetic voice. That's kind of the gist of what I'm getting. Let's see if that's true. At least it's flagged with workshop. Like that pickled fellow, I will keep something sour, puckered tight and curled, a smile, a sense of acrid patience. This is good, this opening, like that pickled fellow, comma. You see how this phrase isn't fully resolved in the opening. So this comparison, like that pickled fellow, I keep something sour. So this, the comparison to him, to the speaker, how the speaker compares himself to this pickled fellow, isn't fully resolved on the first line, and it dangles a little bit, which is very gives a lot of momentum, and that's then the proposition of the poem. The proposition of the poem is that the speaker is going to compare himself to this bogman. So that's a lot of excitement, a lot of interest. Okay, puckered tight and curled, a smile, a sense of acrid patience. Day evaporates like vinegar. So I think this acrid patience, the acrid, puckered, sour. We're expending a lot of adjectival material, which is something I caution folks about. So we're kind of firing off these adjectives here. And as we're firing them off, we're not necessarily painting precisely what is being seen by the speaker. So the reader is not getting closer and closer to a full realization of being embodied in this scene, of looking out over the bog. And without that visual detail, these oral elements that are quite lush and well done, puckered tight, something sour, puckered tight and curled, smile, a sense. So the variation of these sounds here, of these initials, puckered and tight, curled, smile, patience, the plosives, it's very well done. It's someone who's a poet who's now aware of the poetry has to create fresh sounds and music for us, However, while that music is occurring, the reader's vision, the vision that they have of this scene is not becoming more and more in focus. In fact, for me, it's becoming less in focus. And I think that this day evaporates like vinegar then is very, very abstract. I can't place myself at all. Keeps what fiber it will. Again, I would like to see what's going on in this bog. So damn the hangman, the rope slackens its doom in time. So normally I would say with Reddit, if you put doom in a poem, I'm going to fucking yell and scream at you. But this doom, because it has the rope here, and the slight assonance, this opening, so this long O sound of ope, and then becomes even longer in doom, and that's pleasant, and it goes along with this slackening here. So slackening its doom is well done. Again, we have this issue. So now we have this kind of dramatic address. So the speaker seems to pivot towards us and look at us in the eye and says, "So damn the hangman." So it's a more kind of stage language, stage rhetoric of what an actor would do to pivot to the audience. So also that register of speech then becomes amplified to this dramatic public address. It's not a personal or private observation. But because the reader hasn't really been situated thoroughly, this pivot to the direct address or the dramatic stage moment, to me is not completely earned. And although I like the pacing of the poem, the pacing is satisfying. In time I will preserve, if nothing else, the gross blackened bulb of me in a glass. So this is a little bit of an ars poetica, and ars poetica means the art of poetry. So this poem is discussing some elements of what it is to be a poet, to write poetry. I will preserve, if nothing else, the gross blackened bulb of me. So that's, I guess, what this poem is a gesture of doing that. It's a little bit of meta poetry here. I insist on crystal. This to me is borderline kind of bathos. Or histrionics. I'm not buying this. So visitors might look and say he is kept well considering. I think this poem does keep fairly well considering, despite its excesses. You learn from your excesses as a poet. When you dare to push your limits, that's when you can learn in advance. I don't want to sound like someone just discouraging people. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. So what's left? Just tear it up and throw it. Don't write anything at that point, right? So I think let's celebrate Humanimanazoo here for really developing his ear and really trying to get careful cadences. There's perhaps too much of these midline caesura, double caesura, caesura. That's a lot. I mean, this poem is could have a little bit more variance of that, unless it wanted to establish a very regular midline caesura of kind of echoing the Norse meters, which usually have that. They're assonance heavy, and they have a caesura function. I believe it's 4 beats total with a midline caesura. And there is something about these shorter lines which do suggest that. But this brings up the kind of the boogeyman, the kind of elephant in the room, which is Seamus Heaney. Seamus Heaney has this collection called North. probably one of the greatest poetry collections, assuredly one of the greatest collections of poetry ever written by one of who will be remembered as already is, as one of the greatest practitioners of poetry in the English language, the late great Irish poet Seamus Heaney, a bard, on the same footing as Emily Dickinson or Robert Frost or Edna St. Vincent Millay. I mean, truly generational talent. Stuff that just doesn't happen that often. So it's unfortunate here that Humana-Manazu has chosen a topic that is prosecuted so effectively by Heaney in his collection North. And he has these poems about these kind of meditations on violence in Northern Ireland, looking at these Danish bogmen in Jutland. Not so far from him, I imagine, just across the water, I suppose. These poems are so finely honed by Heaney. They're untouchable, in essence. As great a job as Humana-Manazu has done, he's going to need to tip his cap in some way to Heaney. He's going to need to read the Heaney poems, the entire collection North, with great care. And then he's going to need to put below his title, he's going to need to put a subtitle or epigram or some quote or some reference to Heaney with a little bit of tip of the cap. And then he'll need to revise a little bit to make sure that debt is acknowledged. Now, I think inside baseball here, from talking with Humana-Manazu, he didn't know Heaney, which is no problem. I'm always say that not knowing something is just a great excuse to have a great aesthetic experience and go and read something that you don't know about. No problem not knowing something. But I admire Humana-Manazu for his response. His response was pretty much, wow, that really is Heaney did it better than I could ever do. Which unfortunately we all live in these shadows, right? We all live in these shadows. It's hard. It's hard to be original. It really is. But you can pat yourself on the back a little bit, Humana-Manazu, because you found a topic that drew greatness to it in the past. So that means your instinct for finding topics for poetry is good, you might have repeated the toil of a Hercules, but that doesn't make your toil invalid and a great learning experience. And the other thing is, if you slip this out, like I said, you put a little epigram in it, and you slip this out to a literary magazine, tune it up a little bit, and you make it more of a kind of homage to Heaney. They might take it just for that, right? So. Okay, entangled rhyme. Did we talk about this poem? I don't know. I feel like we've done a fair amount of entangled rhyme, but maybe we didn't do this one. I do not ask to be your sun, moon, or star. I feel like we really did do this one, though. I don't know. Did I goof up? Or am I just losing my mind here, guys? Okay, entangled. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like we covered a poem of yours last time about maybe us getting mad about Dungeons and Dragons or something. I don't know. I do not ask to be your sun, moon, or star, but to muse with you. So this is a big problem, and this is a big problem too. To be your sun, moon, or star. I mean, these gestures are so sweeping and vast. one has to be careful is that the type of poet you're going to mature into? One capable of kind of following up these huge celestial gestures to back them up with powers that match them. I would say, why not apprentice yourself to the earth? Why not apprentice yourself to small things, to learning your flowers or your herbs, learning your trees. Heck, learn your different grasses, and then be able to describe vividly what it would be to walk through a field in late summer, and describe vividly what you see, the types of wildflowers on the edges. This grand gesture, sun, moon, and star, it's so big, it's so sweeping, but no one sees anything after that. There's no image that's left in anyone's head because they're all refuted. I do not ask. And none of them, there's no specific sun, no specific moon, no specific star. So they just wash out. Think about how much you could basically triple the impact and focus by saying, I do not ask to be your moon, period, or your Venus, or your rising Mercury, or your whatever it's going to be, your Pleiades, and you get some associations with that, and you get a more specific image with that. Your Big Dipper, whatever it is, we want to invite the reader to see something specific. But even if you just did one, even if you just did, I do not ask to be your moon, period. And even our buddy gazing at the moon with you, lunar canvas. This lunar canvas is strong. This is not going to work. And speaking of not working, but to muse with you, this is just really this kind of deliberately poetical language that's like, tripping over itself. Why not state what you want to state directly? As directly and specifically as possible. This swoon is another just huge ask. Does the sun swoon over the desert? I mean, I can't even see that. I mean, it causes people to swoon, but the sun doesn't. The sun bakes the desert, or glares over the desert, radiates the desert, cooks it to all fuck. But does it swoon over the desert? I mean, that seems princess fairy tale stuff. And then rainbow? I don't know. I mean, entangled, unless you're doing this stuff on purpose, you got to cut this stuff out. Don't do this. It's no good. You send me another one like this, and you're gonna get booted from this channel. I'm not gonna look at any more of your stuff. It's not helping you. It's not helping me. You're not taking this seriously. It's not helping other people. Think about that. Instead of thinking about the poem you want to write, think about a poem that could teach some other people about how to approach this art form with sensitivity. with an open heart, with the possibility for both these huge romantic kind of positive saccharine possibilities of sweetness, but you can't just give us sugar. This is like a cake bought at a supermarket. If you're going to take the time to write, go back and give us fresh ingredients, not supermarket sweetness. All right. Okay, quality. Sorry, am I being too mean? Am I being too mean? I like the okay quality. It could be refreshingly honest. Hills hoist. Rickety stand fan. Encourage new tracks of perspiration down legs. Some ossify into tendrils of white salt that rehydrate and swim in pools at night. Mobile phones glare, profound glare, dumb for days. So, okay quality. I don't know if you had sent this to me, DM me this or not, or whether I just picked this out of the heap as something interesting to discuss. So a brain fart here. So had you DM this to me, okay quality, you probably had some specific ideas about what's going on. I do think that you're not getting a lot of comments here, so that's unfortunate for a workshop piece. You get one really not so helpful comment. I really like this poem. Ugh. I love the short lines, incredible imagery. People always like, well, what do you say flow? Flow, why shouldn't I say flow? We should talk about flow in greater detail. Don't say flow. Okay? How about that? Don't say flow. Rickety stand fan. Rickety. So that's how you're going to open. And you're going to open it to situate the reader to the opening gambit, the first move on the chessboard. You're going to open that with rickety. Rickety stand fan. Is that supposed to be a little bit humorous? Like rickety old horse. Rickety old Cuisinart. I don't know. Is this supposed to be a funny poem? Rickety stand fan. So then the assonants in an and fan and almost rhyme. Stand and fan, near rhyme there, approaching it in rickety. So that this whole first line is kind of syllabic silliness. Encourage new tracks of perspiration down legs. And we're doing this thing of kind of eliding some of the grammatical elements. The rickety stand fan encourages new tracks of perspiration down our legs. So by taking these out, is this like kind of teen lit mag? Like high school lit mag stuff with these really narrow lines? We're going to pull out the $20 word, some ossify into tendrils of white salt that rehydrate. Well, and swim in pools at night? Why does the reader care that these tendrils of white salt rehydrate and swim in pools at night? That's the question. What are we advancing? Are we just setting a scene of something that seems slightly comic, which is it's a hot day and hot nights? So instead of looking at the people in this scene, since there are no I, there is no you, there is no we have mobile phones glare glares, profound glare, dumb for days. So this is definitely, if you were at risk of losing the reader. Now the reader has hung up the phone. Putting mobile phones in a poem is a risky move. And I think there's probably ways that you could do it. But it has the risk of taking the reader and having them reach for their own mobile phone or remind them that they're looking at your poem on a mobile phone or whatever. Do we call them mobile phones that much? I mean, that's more of this rickety, right? This rickety mobile. To us, they're just our cell phones or our phones or our, constant companion. I don't know. This profound and the repetition of glare with slightly different tense, neither of which is exactly correct. Dumb for days. So we do feel dumbfounded by this poem, but, is that what you want to do to your reader? By not having any you or I or we or they or anything, you're also preventing the reader from gaining access to a poem, because what we call like a first person shooter or a third person, whatever this or that, it's because that's how we see and relate and identify with the game that we're playing, right? And when you make a poem, you have to ask, how is the reader going to identify with the poem, and with what are they going to identify, or with whom? And if there is no who of the poem, there's no I or eyeball, it becomes extremely difficult to do. The reader is instead, they're kind of feel like they're looking at like a map or something. But there's no you are here type of thing. It's just an abstract map of language. So I guess I could, trying to be charitable, there's some, interesting attempts at these kind of Latinate, mixing in these Latinate words like rehydrate, perspiration, ossify. But it to me does not push beyond a kind of a, juvenilia level. Okay, low tie. So low tie DM me, hey, when are you recording? I don't get paid to do this, right? I don't get paid to do this. I'm a busy guy. I work a full-time job. I have 3 kids. Not to say I don't enjoy it. I don't love to do this. But it is a service. I hope this is a service. I hope this is a service that people get something out of. And I should be flattered when people ask me when I'm recording. But, yeah. Buy my book. Support the channel. If this is something you believe in and you like, help me out here. Not low tie specifically. Low tie's been a friend of the channel for a long period of time, just giving you a hard time. But hey, you give me a hard time, right? So, all right, low tie. This is a pantoum, and let's see how low tie does at the pantoum. The limitations are defined with each. So the pantoum has these repeat words, and I don't remember the exact rotation of them, but you can see that the second word, I believe, then repeats here. So the second word then repeats here, and there's this kind of pattern of repetition that is the structure of the pantoum. It's a very confined poetic form. And it has to have these rhymes. So A, B, A, B. And that A, B, A, B has to be every single time. So when you combine this requirement for the ABAB with the repeat word, I think it became a French fad, the pantoum, and I don't remember where this form originates. It's an Asian form, I believe, in origin. But it became a fad in I don't know, 19th century Victorian France, I think. But pantomime has people play with it. People definitely play with it, and I've seen some good results out of it. So it's definitely possible. The limitations are defined with each rotation of the wheel. Okay, so low tie here, you're opening with abstraction, right? And I'm going to really hope that you're going to make this concrete, because pantomime demands that. We have to make it as concrete as possible. It's a form that kind of bends towards abstraction naturally, and a strong poet has to steer it and make sure it doesn't just become this like weird, vague sauce. But limitations, opening with limitations here, this is really, really, really dangerous. The limitations are defined with each rotation of the wheel. What limitations? You picture it within your mind, your efforts to make it real. Okay, so this is it's pottery wheel. So if a pottery wheel is, I'm trying to imagine, put my hands on the pottery wheel, and the limitations are defined with each rotation of the wheel. I think a pottery wheel, when I've used one, it's spinning fast enough that I can't really track each rotation of it. I don't know that I picture it. I picture the thing I'm trying to create within my mind, my efforts to make it real. I kind of feel like this is more of an ars poetica, though. I mean, I think low tie is talking about the creation of a poem, not the creation of pottery. I think that's a mistake. I think low tie is missing this opportunity to show us how it feels to make pottery, or show us how to vividly describe. Keats has that ode to aggression urn. So all his ideas about poetry, all his ideas about the lyric instant, all his ideas about truth and beauty are laid out in how he studies this, the art on this urn, and the athletic figures and the young people, the men and women on this urn. Keats makes his statement about poetry through observation. But where is the observation? With each rotation of the wheel, your vision slowly realized. And I'm sorry, low tie. I love the ambition of this poem. I love that you're trying a difficult form, and that you're applying these taking risks and trying to it's just Conan tried to build them. It was forced to build himself up on the wheel of pain. You're trying to build yourself up on this pantomime wheel. If you're listening, I had a guy in my workshop, Mark with a C. If you're listening, Mark, I would very much like you to comment on this episode, since you had a pantomime in my workshop several months ago that was, I would judge it to be highly successful. And I think if you were so inclined, Mark, you could connect with low tie. You could share your pantomime, since I think he could benefit from seeing how you approach this issue. You had a lot of abstraction. Mark's poem had a fair amount of abstraction as well. I would be happy to share it with the channel and put it up here, but I would want to have your permission first, Mark. So do chime in, and we'll see what we can do. Okay. This I just thought was fun. This was not a poem that was sent to me. This was just something I stumbled upon. A limerick on self-improvement. I recently met a Miss Richmond who was fond of self-enrichment. It's good, right? Richmond and enrichment, it's near enough, right? So we have a poet who has a good enough ear that they don't need a rhyming dictionary, because you wouldn't find that in a rhyming dictionary, right? So that shows me a certain amount of acuity, skill. This is not their first rhyme. She joined every movement for self-improvement and read every book in abridgment. Look at this kind of how this comma here, and read every book, comma, in abridgment, and how that really so effectively undercuts. And since it rhymes with the self-enrichment, it's the abridgment and enrichment, really very, very accurate, stinging satire. She aimed at reducing her flaws, defying all natural laws. Again, you guys always are trying to find ways to comment about the way the universe functions in poetry. Look at how easily Groundhog Tales does that. Groundhog Tales is able to comment on the limitations of being human and what's possible, and what our limitations are. In an aside, and without losing any momentum, and chopping like wood as hard as she could when hacking away at the cause. So, and we have that nice little metaphor here, metaphorical imagery. We can see it pretty clearly. We can see this desperate young lady, or lady, I guess we don't know her age, chopping metaphorically. It's something that's never really going to work. And it's kind of, again, it's humorous because, she's not a lumberjack type of person. We can't imagine. So this is more kind of elicits a little bit of a chuckle from us. She took a harassment class and swapped all her plastic for glass. So I think this poem is flirting with the political, maybe trying to, heat up, turn up the heat on the burner, see what we can do, so it's lured the reader in. If you have some political agenda, or you have some kind of, thing you want to test out, you want to make sure that you've lured the reader in first before you do that type of stuff. So this is happening pretty deep into the poem. This is a natural place to try to test out your political ideas. And the limerick is an appropriate venue for that. She chose her pronouns, observed the lockdowns, yet something was missing, alas. So obviously this is not exactly to my taste. I think this is a little bit, I don't know, sort of boilerplate, libertarianese. I also think a little bit of punching down on this Miss Richmond. So I could deal without this entire paragraph. It's. I understand the desire to do something a little bit risque and offend a little bit, and it's nothing better than trying to offend our kind of stuffed political sensibilities of, oh, I'm so progressive and all that. But this is just this. I don't know. Now you end up sounding like I don't know. You just sound dumb, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, what's the harm of observing lockdowns? Maybe it's too soon for me. All my family, we just went through this COVID thing, and we observed our fucking lockdowns. So I don't know. That's not on the craft element as much. That's just I'm not sure you're not a complete nincompoop. But here we return right back to form. She gave up the veal and ceviche. That's great. Stop watching political speeches. I thought she was becoming more political. Fought anger with pills she swallowed with meals, and felt very anxious and itchy. So I guess itchy has to rhyme with ceviche? Is that the idea? This is, I like that she gave the specifics of veal and ceviche, although I think veal has been kind of out for a while. It's like, is anyone eating veal anymore in 2022? Or has that been out for like several decades? Okay, determined to grow and do better, she followed her books to the letter, broke up with her lover, only to discover that all that was left of her was her sweater. It's good. It's good. This is good. Okay. Okay. Wow. I went over here. And probably everybody has left or is bored out of their fucking minds. So with that, I apologize. And I know that I promised I'd do some workshops over the summer, and my whole schedule is a little bit, several weeks behind, and that has been a little bit challenging, but inevitable. So we will rebuild, and we will be right back at you. And stay in touch. Do drop me a DM if you're interested in seeing what's going on. We will get some things going once the dust settles here. All right. Thank you, everyone, and talk soon.